It's a philosophy of going the extra mile. It's the do unto others. It's part of our mission statement is to follow the golden rule, and that really breaks down to treating other people as you want to be treated, giving the kind of service that you want to give. People don't talk about average service. People only talk about really great service or really lousy service. We want our customers to talk about us, but we want them to talk about us, our great service. That's what we're trying to get them to talk about. Average service, nobody talks about. We want them to talk about our great service. And we do a lot of things. Our employees look for ways to kind of go over the top. And in this company, they're rewarded when they do that. I hope there's hundreds of examples out there, and I hope there are 100 more still to come.
Let's call the meeting to order. We'll turn over to the city manager.
Now the secret's out.
The truth be known.
What happened?
Marcus does not hear. Mayor, if you'd like, we can start through the very non-lengthy agenda for today and kind of move into the closed session items we need to cover. Item number 1, the minutes. You have before you an amended copy of that. In all cases, the members voting for approval on items was correct at 4-0, but in the text, Commissioner Escalade was listed as voting, and obviously she was not here and did not do so. So you have that before you.
I caught it, but I didn't call in it. I had circled it.
So everybody read it and everybody caught us this time. But you do have the corrected copy there before you. Item number 2. Kelly. Ordinance 7391, changing the zoning. Excuse me, plan development 358 and residential 1 to amended plan development. The map will be right in front of tab 8. Kelly?
This piece of property is has a little history with it.
Oh, good, thank you.
It's a church, and it's within a neighborhood. This whole neighborhood was owned R1, basically. But it's been a long time. This is a little different than some churches, although this situation occurs in other places. But the south and east side or west side of the property are facing the neighborhood. The east side is facing Western, which has a lot of commercial activity north of it, and then across the street from Western. Not too long ago, they requested, and because institutional uses are allowed within residential districts, their signage that they're allowed is very restricted. They don't get a lot of signage. And so they had requested a plan development not too long ago to be allowed to have a little more signage along the Western Street side than what would typically be allowed for an institution. At that time, nobody saw any problem with that. It wasn't like it was facing across the street from other residences. So that plan development was approved for particular signs along that eastern side. They now have come back and they're wanting to do an addition. They bought up some property to the south of them. They're wanting to build a children's building, and along with that comes additional parking requirements. And so their property as it sits today is zoned R1, and a portion of it is zoned PD for signs. And when they started talking about doing this building, they wanted to know what would they have to do. Could they still do it in R1? Did the PD restrict them from doing it? And when they showed us what they were doing, we preferred, instead of putting the parking, in which they agreed to, that everything would be better if it was all along the Western Street frontage and as little of impact as possible along the Buffalo Trail street side. In order to do that, to get the required parking and to move it, they requested to have their building setback on the western side be just a couple feet less than 15 feet. So I guess long story short, in order to do all this, we said, instead of trying to figure out if it's R1 zoning and what applies and all, let's just once and for all zone this as one plan development, have one site plan, and that way staff knows what you're doing, the residents, even more importantly, the residents know what you're doing. They have some input on what you're doing, and basically what they're doing the PD for is to have a 15-foot setback instead of a 25-foot setback for that new children's building, which would do two things, we think, that would benefit the property owners. Number one, instead of having a parking lot and two drives associated with the new parking, that would go over on the east side of the property, and in place of that, they would have an architecturally well-done building, because we have architectural requirements. They would eliminate the two drives, so they would have less traffic coming in and out of their neighborhood street, and you'd have a landscape buffer there instead of the parking lot. So, because normally when we do PDs, we don't like to lessen what would normally be required, but because of this situation, we felt that giving them the opportunity to have the building with a 15-foot setback instead of the 25-foot setback would allow them to put that parking over there and benefit the residences. The rest of the proposed development standards are really what's existing. It shows the building footprints, the lot coverages. We did put architectural requirements on this building and in future buildings that would have to be architecturally compatible with the existing building. So all in all, we also required recessed lighting along the Buffalo Trail side. They have some really old fluorescent lights that light up the front yards of the other the residential properties pretty good. So those will be changed out. We haven't had any negative comments. Had a couple of calls, and they would rather have the landscape buffer there rather than the parking lot there. They definitely, anything to have less traffic, both callers agreed with that. So, given all that, the Planning and Zoning Commissioners felt that the plan development was appropriate, and that the reduction of the setback in this case provided more benefit than requiring it.
Plus, on Buffalo, it also eliminates two accesses.
Two drives.
Yeah, so that ought to really cut down on traffic on
Right.
Yeah.
So if they were going to have to put the if they had to put the 25-foot back, have a 25-foot setback, it was going to eliminate a row of parking and encroach into the drive aisle that they were going to have for the additional parking. So they were going to have to move that. They'd have to move it a little bit further back and put all that on the west side. So they just kind of flipped it and pushed it over.
Kelly, you said they expanded to the south, so that hatched area, lots 1 through 7, how much of that is expanded? Did they take houses out there, or what did they do? What was there?
There were houses.
They took them out. Okay.
And they still own the lots 11 and 8.
And there's no impairment to make a left turn when you're trying to see down west or turning left off of 47th with this closer setback to the corner, to the street?
No, the Buffalo, the reduced setback would be along Buffalo Trail only.
Okay, it's
With
not
the
Open it up on the.
Okay. I thought it was.
Kelly, will you remind me how the homeowners are notified about changes
In zoning?
in a PID, homeowners in a PID are notified because when we went through the budget and the assessments, that was the only complaint we had is that some homeowners still left out. Oh, I thought it was.
It's a residential.
It's
Oh,
a
I'm
plan
sorry.
development.
Oh, okay.
But it's still a good question. It's 200 foot, isn't it?
It's 200 feet.
They're notified by mail.
Okay.
But we do have a PID item later on the agenda. We can-
Okay, I'll ask that then. Thank you. I was reading
It's this.
PID.
Just reading
Yeah,
it.
that notice
Okay.
area.
Okay.
Anything that falls in there.
200 feet, including streets, is how we usually notify, is how we always notify property owners.
And that number comes out of state law.
You send them basically abbreviated what we got, just saying what's gonna happen.
We, by law, we have to tell them the date, place, the time, and the request that's being made.
Okay.
And then we also put our phone numbers and contact information on that.
Good question.
We didn't have anybody show up at the meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. So
None of the PNC members have heard about any of that. Ever good?
All that smoking.
Your Planning and Zoning Commission has been doing a lot of work over the last few months. I would like to thank them in some way because, I mean, they have been busy and taking on some difficult situations and coming out with positive outcomes, so.
Well, we had one item tabled last week, so they're trying to do their job and see if they can get things done that the parties are happy with, so, you know.
And they've moved an incredible backlog of plats and so forth that had been sitting, waiting for one party or another, and all that's moved down to a very current list, and yes, ma'am,
They've been working really
they are
hard.
staying busy.
Jay, any other questions about that? Thanks. Kelly?
Okay, consent agenda. Consent item A, Greenways Unit 26, Public Improvement District Project. This is continuing masonry and wrought iron fencing down the Coulter side of the Greenways into, or along the area that's the newly platted and about to be developed portion of that development. If you look right before tab B, the last one before B, you can see where that goes. And then those others are the drawings of what it will look like. So, and I apologize, by the time we get to the meeting, I might not be able to speak tonight. So, may make something happen. Has been reviewed and recommended by the PID board, and now comes back to you for that order.
The fence is already in on the other area of Lidstone, both sides of that. That was good.
Okay, so now I'll ask the same question. Is it up to the PID board to notify homeowners?
It is in a case like this, of course, that's because that's who's ultimately
Yeah.
going to pay for it.
Okay.
You know, on that, I'd like to let you know, because I know that was talked about when we went through the budget process about how they, and Kathleen, the planner, that is our PID board liaison, she and I both went to their last homeowners association meeting out of the Simpson Academy and talked to them about, you know, a lot of the PID process, and that we were really going to try to work as much as we could with the PID board and the developer to make sure that whatever needed to happen, we would help facilitate in any way possible that communication to get better between the PID board and the homeowners association. And so when this project came up, we asked if had any information been given to the homeowners association board on that, and there hadn't been at that time, but I think like a week ago, we asked that question again, and they said that they had emailed the bids and the plans to the chairman of the homeowners association.
Okay, because they hear about their assessment, of course, but they don't ever see, look at all the cool stuff that's happening. So,
So we're trying to work with them to try to get that communication line open.
good, thanks.
It's unique because both boards represent the exact same people.
Yeah, I had a citizen ask me about that. I think he got different greenways. He says, well, why are you all raising? I said, no, you need to contact your homeowners association and your PID. It wasn't us. You agreed to pay for that.
When people buying these PIDs, sometimes I think that's just another big stack of paper.
Yeah.
I agree. Until it comes down to it, they're like,
Oh, I didn't know I was paying this.
The paper becomes real when it's a bill. Any questions?
51% of them agreed.
Yeah.
50 less one.
Any questions on the fence out there?
Yep.
Okay, let's move to item B, Martin Road Lake Drainage Study. This is further continuation of a quickly accelerating drainage utility. And if you would, go grab tab C and then come back to 2 prior pictures. I think it's pretty telling. The first one, working from the back to the front, is this Martin Road Lake area from 1960. And then look at the one immediately following. As you can see from the right up, this area drains about 2,000 acres. There are portions of that lake that are significantly excavated at this point. Of course, development has continued in and around that lake area. We know this is one of the next major steps in that drainage utility. And to do that in the most effective and efficient manner possible, we'd ask for your approval to
Is that Dale running through the old picture?
I'm sorry.
It
Is
goes
that
in the
Dale
water,
running
yeah.
through? And then is this Martin Road? Because it kind of has a different angle.
It's turned a little bit, yeah.
It's northeast 15th and Martin Road, and it's 2 main roads.
Okay.
That are in that picture.
It's out by the mortuary.
Which one?
Right at that
It's
stop.
spatially challenged.
Stop sign there.
See this row of houses, and it's
Emmanuel Church is right
pretty much that one, just
And like
there.
Bill.
I get your long story, northeast 15.
Which is an east-west road.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
So 15th is probably the one at the top of the back picture. That's probably 15th.
And is this one kind of done like Lawrence? I might have missed that. Did they just said they should continue to do this one?
Yes, sir.
How deep is it?
It's not very big. It's probably 20 feet, 25, something in that area. And it's deep enough to hide a car. But that's about it.
Because it has,
How do you know
that?
2 cars stacked up on top of each other.
But it's a,
That's a little scary, Michael, you know.
well, you know.
You gotta hit it about 50.
He knows where the bodies are buried.
A car with a body.
Well, I only say that because this has had some of those situations where the dive team had to go out and actually investigate and see what's in the water. Not unlike a lot of the fires around town. It's just what it is. But the development, if you look at the colored picture, you can kind of see what the flooding area potential is.
Yeah.
And we're very concerned about that. We have a lot of, especially apartment complexes. We have an elementary school. We have some things in there that we're
Children's learning
really concerned
center.
about. Yeah.
Department of Public Health building.
Now, the new building is actually elevated up out of that. It's just they don't have a revised elevation on that. The lines were drawn before the picture was updated.
So
that's
where's
what-
15?
But we're just concerned about the flooding issues.
It's one on top.
This is an area of high concern in our 1983 study when we created our drainage utility, our stormwater master plan.
Yes.
The consultant at that time identified several projects around this. And so the main purpose of this is once again to validate that those concerns are still valid today. And if they are, what would be a possible way to take a look at that? Some of the proposals that they had made back in the 80s were more at the mile-high level as opposed to the ground level. Some of the things that they had proposed as far as the amount of excavation to create additional storage, I don't physically think it's possible. And so that's why we're asking another engineer to come in and do an in-depth study with some specific recommendations to help us know what to do with this area.
And so how long have we been waiting to do this?
Well,
Since
you
the
know,
last-
1960, yeah.
So it's a little overdue.
We've identified the problem in the 80s, and so it's time to kind of do something. We think this is probably the best way to handle the stormwater money is to do a true study of this flyer, and then to identify the major projects that should come out of that study. And the next year, we'll probably do a different playa and do the exact same thing.
Good.
Playa 1 year, the following year, follow up with a stormwater project.
Well, that's paying off.
Yeah.
If you go out there today, there's little to no water in it, but
All we
you
need
can
is
go out
good
in a
rain.
normal spring and you'll be right up to the road.
Well, until this year, this never would have made the agenda.
Exactly.
Correct.
That's right.
And not the last of them. Again, they'll just continue to come through.
Now, when you think about the number of families that's going to.
It would impact if we had a flood,
So, good work.
and they have to flood insurance and all that stuff.
In the long
On
run.
that first picture, we hadn't been able to build the playground, the ballpark, parking lot, and do that because of where it's That's what
You know, just looking, you've got this, for example, south of the street, that big kidney shape, is that kidney? Is that, or lung?
Very close.
It looks like a
Don't ask the
liver.
doctor.
Liver.
You've got that
Make it up with the
oddly
leaf.
shaped thing there, and on this color picture, you can see it
Even
looks
the
like a,
attorney's talking about internal
it
organs.
looks like a single cell they dug deep to drain and tried this park over. And the same thing there, for the big red area, big a deep cell, and now we got one for ballparks and parking lots.
That's a good
We do
explanation.
not want to recreate North Lake long-term.
Well, your new health clinic is right over there too.
Yeah.
Right, there was both an excavation offset done and that pad's built up. If you'll stand, I believe it's the northeast corner of Public Health, you can see.
Yeah.
You notice they cleaned up those businesses on the west side there, maybe, but they cleaned them up since you guys went in.
That first piece of Martin Road is really redeveloping nicely, from the boulevard up to Public Health.
Even the older buildings are kind of.
Yeah.
The old service station has been still
It's
there,
been
but it's been
cleaned
cleaned
up.
up.
All the junk's gone up.
And just to kind of fill in the blank question now, when you're in an area like that, that's currently potentially in a flood zone like that, that's when you get federally subsidized flood insurance, right? But if you're outside a flood zone like that, you're not eligible for federally subsidized flood insurance, is that correct?
I believe that's correct.
Well,
The
what
offset
drives that, in
insurance-
all honesty, is the lenders. If you're inside a designated area, they mandate the insurance, okay, which is provided by the federal government. If you're outside that area, you can still get flood insurance, but it's much, much cheaper. Most people prefer not to buy that if it's not a mandate.
It's
'Cause
cheaper if you're outside the area?
Yeah,
Yes.
because you're not in
So
a
you're outside-
Oh, I
floodplain.
got you, okay, but you
If you're
gotta
in the
pay for it.
area, then it's mandated by the lender.
I see.
Now, the other piece of that is, we also, since we're part of that floodplain program at the federal level, we do have a certified floodplain manager, and we have to be involved as far as any improvements. And so there are certain requirements in that federal program that if you have an existing house, for example, and you wanted to add to it, but you're inside this floodplain, you may not be able to without, as the federal government requires, raising your house up above that elevation.
Mm.
Now, that's going to look kind of weird if you have to raise it 8-10 feet on your lot in order to comply. So those are the things that the federal government has done that we have to make sure we ensure that the building safety program and also the city engineer follow that floodplain program. So there's more involved than just the insurance, but there's also the improvements within those zones. It's a very comprehensive program.
And when FEMA redraws that map, they're all subject to whatever FEMA's new map is?
The maps are subject to change based upon the latest data.
They've
That's
been
correct.
expanded.
They will change based upon development. You have to remember that, like at the 1960 picture, you have to make assumptions on what the development's going to actually be. Well, today, we have a much better picture of what that actually is, and so therefore, those elevations may go down based upon actual conditions as opposed to what the projections were at the beginning.
So if you have a formal drainage utility in a plan, and you implement the plan, will that change the federal regulations when they come back and review them and update them?
It can change the boundary, the map.
The boundary.
It won't change the
So it
regulations.
can change the insurability of various homes and whether or not you have to buy flood insurance when you do all
It
various.
can indeed.
I got you.
But, and that process is once again a documented process. If we were to go in and excavate a certain volume, then the elevation would come down. So that would be the new limits of that required insurance by the lenders for the most part. But to do that, we can't just send them a letter saying, hey, we did this work. We've got to provide them with the engineering documentation. They can see the calculations, they review it. And we have to pay a fee to apply for that. But it's something that happens in a lot of the other parts of the state where they get a lot of rain continuously.
And it's not just about digging the pit deeper, it's about potentially providing more efficient runoff and draining it out to another area.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And
All of that will work together. Just move a volume of water away from a certain place.
is that any different for a business to get than a homeowner to get that flood insurance?
I'm not an expert, but I don't think it is.
No,
I
you
think the
still have
key
to
is
have
finding an
insurance.
agent that understands, because there are some agents that do not give out proper information. They will tell you if you're outside the area, you can't get the insurance, and that is not true.
Isn't it true that when we had that last flood, which I can't even remember how long ago that was, along I-40, some of the properties along I-40, East I-40, close to our Wild Horse, that some of those businesses now, if they were to try to renovate, update, do anything, they're in floodplain now.
Some of those, the
Yeah.
lines have moved.
Some of the
That's correct.
hotels along I-40,
That is correct.
they're in a floodplain now where they never had been before because of that flood. that we had along I-40.
Well, and then the FEMA, Jim, when we were on Commission 0405, they came to us and they said they're gonna change this and we can file a protest that precludes them. And if we didn't, it would affect a lot of businesses negatively
Yes.
in those areas and probably homeowners, but, so we did protest that a little bit, or did we?
We had several areas where we went through that process, and it took us many years to go through the complete process to finally get the last set of maps that are approved by FEMA.
You know how the lenders are insisting we get flood insurance, and if you don't, they get a big hickey if they don't get flood insurance.
Just as there were places that expanded, there were areas where those zones came down because of improvements that had been made. Of course, that's certainly much easier for a property owner to handle than yesterday I was not, and now I am today.
Some agents will also sell you flood insurance, thinking that that means if a pipe breaks, that you're covered.
It has to be a natural,
Well,
right?
the unknowing consumer.
Yeah, no, it has to be a natural. Look.
That's interesting.
The federal program is called the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program, is where that derives.
And that applies in the city limits fee, the Ogallala and have not for years and years and years, right?
No, that's a whole separate discussion. It's a
Yeah.
great question. Traditional
Yeah.
recharge features for the Ogallala are the playas, but once they modify
Yeah.
to where the zone that's permeable is covered,
Yeah.
no.
I
it's
mean,
just
we're
not.
not screwing it up this way, it just hadn't been for years.
Oh, no, this
Recharge.
stuff's been gone for
Yeah.
years, and this neighborhood predates 1960. Predates cameras, we just didn't have them.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Can't take any picture if you don't have a camera.
You can draw, artist rendering on a rock.
Any more questions on the Martin Road drainage study? Item C, annual advertising contract with AGN Media. We're required to do this. This covers our print and our online products at an agreed upon rate. Since we never know exactly what we're doing each year, we base it on the prior year's spend, and the prior year's spend in this case was $99,564.
So we just get a little pocket change back out of 100,000.
You did last year.
I remember this last year.
Man.
This is where the obligatory comments to Mr. Welch were usually made last year.
Well, you would think I'd buy
He said
some
it's
little
not
bit of
his
good
department.
stuff.
It's not your department.
Just needed to prod a little, it'd come out.
You hear that, Terry? Okay.
Yeah, so that way we can put all our numbers.
100,000 goes a long way with me.
And it has.
It has.
Have the requirements changed to where you can also do things electronically to post and so forth? And how
No.
valid are they?
Not yet, but there's a bill filed this session. Of course, there was a bill filed the prior session and the session before. As you can imagine, those are pretty hard fought at the legislature. But until that law is changed, the majority of what you think of as our legal notices have to be published in print.
Do you think for 100,000 we can get somebody to instruct us on how to access the new mobile app?
I got it
Be able to get
someday.
on
Oh, they- I'm just
from my
wondering.
desktop.
There was some problem
Did
with
you
it.
pay for it?
Getting a message, it's open.
Well, nothing's free.
I will have to tell you, I have access.
Do you really?
I do. That's, of course, I don't carry around one of these
He just opens
pieces,
it up.
but it's at home, I do.
It works
He
great.
folds the paper and puts it in his pocket.
Oh,
That's mobile access.
if I
Sorry,
can
Jim.
Oh, brother.
Is this
We
considered
did
a
it.
sole source?
But, yes.
Yeah.
That's just coming back from my failed attempt to get the agendas on the iPad.
Yeah.
We probably
I was
should
ready.
say
Oh,
something
that's
about
what
the
I got.
independent being available electronically.
Absolutely.
Right,
Yes.
George.
That's why I'm
We
saying
should
sole
at
source
least
print.
Yeah, we should.
Mhm.
All right, let's
What
move
we
on.
have?
Item D, aviation clear zone easement, typical and standard out there. Item 4, presentation. We actually have 2 presentations for you tonight, this being the first of the month, being the evening meeting. Chief Taylor will be here to go over the 2012 crime statistics and just kind of a general update about the police department, some of the expanded initiatives from last year, and what the results were achieved by doing so. So you'll hear about directed patrol, your community-oriented policing, and some of the hot spots that they worked on: Thompson Park, Hamlet Park, Elwood, some downtown stuff. He does have the maps, so you'll be able to view those, and then he's available for questions if you may have them. The second one, we have prepared using third-party and commonly available data, just kind of a quick economic update on the status of the city. As you know, the Amarillo National Bank released their economic tale at the end of December. Some very, very positive news. We took that and we looked at other metrics. Pretty brief. I think we've got maybe 13, 14 slides that will show out there for you tonight. And have made just a small handout version of that for each of y'all so that you can follow along. And I would imagine we'll end up hopefully getting this posted to the website, so it'll be available there as well.
I think it's a good move to doing more PR on how well the city's doing.
Never do enough, and it's just amazingly positive for the city right now. I think the public ought to congratulate themselves. In other news, speaking of future agenda items, Marcus has continued to work as a follow-up to the presentation from Ms. Matthews last week about the different synthetic marijuana, those issues, and et cetera. I think we're close to having the draft resolution that was mentioned. We'll get with Ms. Matthews and have her look at it. And if that's within your wishes, we bring it back for a future agenda, I would say within the next 2 weeks. And the resolution would be targeted at reinforcing the need for the state legislature to act upon those bills that they have before them right now. They have, I think, 3 bills. So, and truly, that's going to be the best and most effective way to address the issue. The local stuff, Lubbock did pass an ordinance, and in fact was quoted at the time that they knew they would have to revisit that every 6 months in order to keep it effective. And then you still have the issue of do those sellers choose to just locate across the invisible boundary, and now you have no regulation.
If the state acts on this, how long will it take for that to be in effect? Any idea?
September 1.
September. If they don't act on it, my suggestion is we piecemeal whatever we can and work on these people. I know it's not simple, I know it's not good, but I think we do everything we can to support these people trying to get this out of our city. Even if it's not the perfect way to do it, if they don't pass on it, I think we have to look at something.
Ms. Matthews and her group are on Capitol Hill next week working on the federal levels.
Good.
Hope we get some relief that applies across a broader area.
They've identified one of those bills that they prefer to the other 2. There's 3, I guess, and they said there's one that they feel is valuable for their cause. Okay. I think we should want to stay up.
Please lend your voice to that. Be sure the legislature knows, and especially your delegation knows, that that's a major topic.
You know, the other thing that if the quotes were right in the Avalanche Journal, the city commissioners in Lubbock were saying that education is important too, so.
Yeah.
They, I believe, have tasked their board of public health
Okay.
with that. Is that how you understood that?
I'll mention it at the mayor's meeting at the end of the week too.
You know, this is just so difficult because this is how the pharmaceutical industry works. I mean, you're on medication, it's getting ready to go generic. They make a slight change to it, so they get another 7, 8 years. And it is chasing a family.
Yes, sir.
So it's hard.
Brian, how long does that take? If they, let's say that you did, Lubbock does this, and they outlaw virtually everything that's out there today, how long does it take those criminals to get it back on the shelf in some other form or fashion?
Well, you know, they can make modifications as small as when they change the chemical structure of it slightly, so that when it hits stomach acid, the acid itself changes it back to the active ingredient. And so it's basically like taking the same thing as before, but it's a different chemical structure. And they can do that at the liver, they can do that. And so it's, you know, it's a really difficult thing to chase.
So we're doing it the right way.
I think I don't know what else you do. I don't know what else you do, because if you start just using generic language on things that affect you,
It will be effective.
then you
Yeah.
won't be, I don't know.
I've never even been in one of those stores. I might have to
Field
try
trip.
it and see.
Green Gorilla is not there.
That's your neighbor.
That is mine.
If you could make a purchase for us while you're there.
I don't think so.
How's that cell phone camera work?
That's right. Mine works great. I'll go with you.
You know, and some of those ingredients, like the salvia, is that how you pronounce that? You know, they sell that in most of the ethnic stores, just in pure form. I mean, you know, and it's, of course, if you read about it, you're not supposed to be using it to a lot of things, but you can still buy it legally as a herb or whatever.
This is horrible. It's just horrible.
Stick to meat and potatoes, and you'll be all right.
And a little bit of whiskey.
Oh, a lot of whiskey. All that eating.
The part, yeah, but the part that's not funny, the part that's frustrating is they know kids are dying from this stuff.
Yeah, they do.
In our town.
And they disguise it all like candy or some drink.
Here's kind of the final point, just real briefly before we ask for a closed session. With y'all's permission, we'd like to announce opening the acceptance of applications for the first non-pilot, the first real class of Amarillo 101 tonight.
Oh.
We're set up to go on that. That first group was great. They've helped us make it, I hope, even better than what it was. But that would begin Thursday, March the 21st, 5 Thursday evenings, and 3 field days rather than the 2 that we did the last time. And again,
Francis sent us that schedule.
she will. And again, we would like to bring that class before you guys on April the 23rd to recognize them for going through that. We're going to ask for 20 participants, which is a bigger group than we had last time. We do have kind of some carryovers that came out of that last group, and certainly we'll put them at the head of the line, but we do want to open that and get the remaining slots.
Good.
And hopefully have a backlog for the next time that we do this.
Great.
And is there any criteria, age, or the fact that they do have to live in the city of
They
Amarillo?
need to live in the city limits of Amarillo. They need to not be at the current time holding or seeking an elected office of any particular level. And the 2 most important requirements after that, do what?
I'm sorry, 18 years of age.
They have to be 18 because of what we let them do, but they need to commit to being there. They need to commit to going through those 8 sessions, and they just need to be able to come out and enjoy it. I think the last group had a lot of fun with it.
And it was phenomenal, their attendance. Some of them knew going in, they already had some dates that they couldn't attend. But the attendance by the group overall, including those that had some already predetermined dates that they're going to miss. Normally, there's only one.
A couple of those modified so they could be there.
Yeah.
I want to think there were 4, maybe 5 that hit every single one. So,
And there are some that do want to come back for the ones they missed, so I'll be notifying them of that. And Jared and Mayor, if y'all want me to, I can have those applications available after the meeting if people want to pick one up.
I think I'd like to let them take those off the website.
Off the website,
We'll
okay.
have those posted in the morning. It's a simple one-page application. You know, who are you? What's kind of been your civic involvement? What would you like to learn as we go through this course? And can you commit to doing it?
We can certainly.
And can we use your picture? Because they take lots of pictures.
Can you submit that electronically, or do you need to download it and then bring it in, or mail it?
That's above my pay grade as to how they submit it from that point.
Oh, look at you, sir.
Listen,
technology.
We've already received one application.
Electronically.
It's not interactive, you gotta download it and fill it out and get it to us. Fax it back. That's fine, they'll do that.
Yeah, we'll have selected the 20 by, I think, February the 22nd, and let them know, and be ready when they come back from spring break.
Sounds good. I think that's excellent.
Are you asking us to submit X number of names?
I think we have those from the carryover.
Really?
From that last
Yeah,
batch.
because we had some
And
people
I-
that volunteered after that class when they heard about it.
Mhm. And we'll follow up with that group, and then I'd like the rest of that, just have it open, and let's see how we do.
You may get some I've had a couple of phone calls, I just referred them to
Yeah,
Jared.
send them to us.
Just people that know we might be looking.
I just didn't know if they had any homework. Good.
Y'all did the heavy lifting for us for that pilot class.
Okay.
I hope that it will now kind of take upon that energy back and move
Are we
forward.
gonna go like we did and introduce or anything?
We were gonna wait till it got closer, but yes.
Okay.
One of the follow-up sets of interviews that was done by one of our staff members, that was a specific question that was asked of them. And they all really gained a lot from knowing that the commission was interested in them come out. And second, that you guys already knew most of that. You were able to tell them, y'all are gonna see this, you're going to do that. It meant a lot to them. And we're actually gonna have some of the alum come out and help with some of that.
Good. That's a good way to keep
Yeah,
them
that's
involved.
good. That's great.
Be a lot of fun. A lot of fun. And still no wastewater plant. There's still clean water.
Oh,
It's the
darn.
best, it made the
Brian and I
biggest
still have
difference
to
in my
go
life.
July.
Y'all are
It
just
made a
such
big difference in my
procrastinators.
life.
It's not hot enough. He wants to go when it's really
You
good.
no longer look at the bottom of your shoes when you step in water?
Yeah. Well, I just know that there are 20 people who do that every day for us, and that's important.
Mayor, could we ask for a closed session now?
Let's do it.
Mayor and Commission, I'll call a closed session